one of our little trips. We've got an RV. Enjoy it.
Well, it's time to start.
And you'll catch up on the other 170 lessons.
Yeah, we'll have plenty of time after class.
Well, this is Sunday, April the 3rd, 2018. It's Bible Prophecy Lesson number 171. Today we're going to talk about the rapture. We'll review the pyramidology, which was the last time I remember being here. And then we got a few signs of the times, scriptures of the day, and then we'll talk about the rapture, things associated with the rapture. Nobody else wants to talk about it, so I'll talk about it. So before we get started, let's have a word of prayer. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe, our creator and maker, and the one in whom we live and move and have our being. And we're grateful for another day that you've given us life, that we can gather here as a group, study these things that you have left for us to find. And we're just thankful, Lord, that we have this hope that someday in the very near future that we will see you coming on the clouds of heaven. And we just look forward to that time and meeting you and all of the people that have gone on before us and who come with us. So bless us now as we study these things, and we ask this all in your name. Amen. Okay. The pyramid. In Isaiah 19:19, it defines a monument located in Egypt, in the middle of Egypt and on the border thereof, which is a unique location because Egypt is split into Upper and Lower Egypt. And the border between Upper and Lower Egypt is called Giza. And in the midst of Giza, or the middle of Giza, is a singular point. And that singular point happens to be a place where there is a pyramid. It's called the Great Pyramid. And if you read the gematria of that 32-word passage in Isaiah 19:19, the gematria, or the numerical value of that in the Hebrew, is 5,449. And then we learned that the height of the Great Pyramid of Giza is 5,449 pyramid inches. And a pyramid inch is the fundamental unit used in the construction of the Great Pyramid. And in the base of the Great Pyramid, we noted that it encodes three measurements of the year: the solar, the sidereal, and the anomalistic year. All slightly different, but encoded to three significant digits. That is pretty amazing. Somebody was either awful lucky or they knew what they were doing. And if you look, and of course the Akkadian word for pyramid, Urim Thummim, means revelation in measurement. And we learned that some really good astronomers from England, let's see, Adam and James Rutherford, the father and son team, Charles Piazzi Smythe, and who else? I forget the name of some of the other people, but they went there and made detailed measurements of the pyramid because they were convinced it had a message. And indeed, it appears that it does, because if you stand in the bottom of the descending passageway of the Great Pyramid and look over your shoulder, you can see stars during the day. And so John Herschel, being an astronomer, wondered if there was a day in which you could stand at the bottom of the descending passageway, look over your shoulder, and see the North Star. And on a hunch, he checked it out, and sure enough, you could. But it was only one day in 1 year that occurred, and it was March 25th, 2141 BC. And he said, that's interesting, that must mean something. And he also noticed on the descending passageway there were V notches cut into the side walls. And so he, on a hunch, said, well, I wonder if you took a pyramid inch and assigned it to a year and measured down the descending passageway to the ascending passageway, what date that ascending passageway would begin at. And he did, and lo and behold, the date of the ascending passageway was 1453 BC, which is the date that Israel left Egyptian captivity. And if you extend it going on further up, it breaks out. And at the breakout, it breaks out at Rosh Hashanah, 2 BC. And then where the breakout parallels the wall, you draw a vertical run line down, and it hits April of 33 AD, which is the date in which the Messiah was crucified. So there are dates in that Great Pyramid. And we also noted that there are 3 pyramids, and that one is offset slightly from the others, just like the stars in the belt of Orion are set up. So it's pointing to some story with Orion. And of course, we know from the Gospel in the Stars that Orion has a particular meaning. And so we looked at the meaning of Orion. It's the light bearer. And the interesting thing about the pyramid is all other monuments in Egypt have the names of the Pharaoh who built them all over them, because he wanted all the credit. You go into the Great Pyramid, you won't find a single hieroglyphic. Oh, well, you'll find one in the relieving chambers above the king's chamber, but those were obvious forgeries by Colonel Howard Weiss. And so now we know that whoever built that thing, he knew a lot about the creation of this world, yes.
It's interesting because, we're just doing this in our class, and they don't say anything about that being a forgery when you start looking through Wikipedia.
No, they won't.
At all. Because you get to like the 3rd page and you find out that it's major.
It was a major forgery, and it was an obvious forgery because Weiss wasn't smart enough to realize that hieroglyphics, interestingly enough, the most sophisticated form of hieroglyphics were the very first ones. And then they got adulterated over time. And if you mix hieroglyphics 500 years apart, it's a blatant, obvious thing to anybody that knows anything about Egyptology. And he mixed them. And the cartouche for Khufu, whom he tried to forge and put inside there, but it's the Egyptologists were already convinced Khufu built it, and consequently, here's the smoking gun, we need to go no farther. Don't look, put your blinders on, this is who built it. There's a sign, he left it there for you.
Did any other pharaoh's pyramids have those types of measurements encoded in them?
None of them. This pyramid is different from all the rest. It's built on ball and sockets so that it will actually expand and contract without cracking. It's one giant, singular, monolithic stone because it's glued together with a glue that nobody can replicate to this day, and it's stronger than the stone itself. There are things about this pyramid that make no sense whatsoever unless you really know what you're doing. And the Egyptian Book of the Dead gives credit to Enoch as the one who built it. For Enoch was not, for God took him. Where did he take him? Well, some say he took him over to Egypt, and he and the Watchers built this thing, which makes sense to me because you can't even cut one of those stones to this day with the accuracy that those people cut it. They were cut to with an optical precision within 1/50th of an inch over a 6-foot square surface area. And then they were all glued together with this glue that nobody can replicate. So it is indeed a mystery surrounded by, it's what?
I think it's called the Hand of God.
Yes, it's a monument of God, as Isaiah 19:19. Any comments about it? Is that the first time anybody ever heard anything about the Great Pyramid? You probably won't hear about it Sunday morning.
Well, everybody in the church will talk anything like that. I mean, it's just like talking about the rapture or talking about sin or anything else. It's something that people want to hear.
Can't hear it. Yes. The Messianic barley was harvested in preparation for the third temple wave offering just recently. And on the second night of Passover, the fast Saturday night, dozens of men and women and children went out to the fields to harvest barley, not so much as a reenactment, but as a real temple-related Passover ceremony. And the following day, the harvest was brought to Jerusalem, where it was turned into flour, and the Kohanim, the high priests or the priests, descended from Aaron, performed all the a full dress rehearsal of the wave offering, which will take place someday soon in the third.
What is the wave offering?
That is Feast of Tabernacles, where you take the grain and wave it before the Lord, and then you make cakes and stuff like that. How about this guy, Saudi Prince, Iran's supreme leader, makes Hitler look good. Oh, Ali Khamenei. Well, he makes Hitler look good because, well, this guy is going to be, at some point, he will make Hitler look good because he will do even what Hitler ever thought about doing.
I told Pat, like he's alive.
Yeah, he's a strange duck. But he recognizes the enemy when he sees it. And Iran is coming after him. They don't like each other. They're opposite ends of the spectrum. One Shia and one Sunni, and never the twain shall meet. So, yep. It's the leadership of the Islamic Republic of Iran that's over there supporting the Yemenites who are fighting the Saudis. And it's oh, clouds swarm over the Iran deal as Trump deadline nears. Well, you know what this is all about? This is about the nuclear deal with the mini. And Trump said it's a bad deal, we're getting out of it. And so in May, mark my words, he will either put an end to it or they're going to start to renegotiate the deal. And you watch. Because Yom Kippur of this year, that deal will be signed. If we have the signs, if we have the times right, you will see as we get closer and closer to September, you'll hear background noise about that thing being renegotiated because it has never been in effect because Iran has never signed it. So they're not obligated to keep anything. I mean, who does negotiations like that? I don't think Trump will let them get by with it anymore. Pretty interesting.
In your opinion.
My opinion. That goes without saying. That's all you get here is my opinion. And you read in Daniel chapter 9 that he, that's the Antichrist, shall make a firm covenant with the many for 1 week. Everybody has always interpreted the many as Israel. Well, Israel isn't many. Israel is only one. And this covenant with the many fits perfectly the covenant with Iran, the nuclear nonproliferation deal, because there are like 6 countries involved with it. It's a deal with the many. And this would say, well, this is not a very big deal. I mean, this could mean anything, right? But the problem is this is one piece of circumstantial evidence piled on another piece, piled on another piece. Every place, I challenge you to find a place in the scripture which talks about the Antichrist, which can't be explained with Ali Khamenei. Every last thing that you can find has a fulfillment in Ali Khamenei. It says in Revelations that he was dead and yet lived. Ali Khamenei in 1981 was blowed up. He blowed up real good. And he bled out and he was dead. For all practical purposes, had no vital signs, and they pumped him full of blood and he came back alive. The interesting thing is, he didn't see the long tunnel and go in and see Jesus. He said he was suspended between heaven and earth. Very interesting. But he came back to life. So every place you can find an instance of an element of truth about the Antichrist, you can find a fulfillment in Ali Khamenei. Gaza protests. 17 Palestinians killed in confrontation with Israel forces. Well, they don't like Israel, and so we're going to make them. 17 Palestinians killed, 1,400 injured. So it's just amazing. And then Turkey was shaking their finger at them. You shouldn't be killing those people, as Turkey kills people by the thousands, their own people. So interesting. It's interesting. What do we read in Numbers? Then you shall drive out all the inhabitants of the land from before you, and destroy their engraved images, destroy all their molded images, and demolish their high places. You shall dispossess the inhabitants of the land that dwell in it, for I have given the land for you to possess. And what if you don't? But if you do not drive out the inhabitants of the land from before you, Then it shall be that those whom you let remain shall be literally pricks in your eyes and thorns in your side, and they shall harass you in the land wherein you dwell. Is the Bible being fulfilled or not? They didn't kick them all out, and they're paying the
Who
price.
was the leader in 67 that did not let them destroy the temple when they retook the city?
Oh, that was an interesting story too, because they had a big cannon aimed
were there.
right at the Mosque of Omar for the Dome of the Rock, and they were gonna blow it up. Gun wouldn't go off. They couldn't do it. But they did kick most of them out, but they didn't kick all of them out. And they gave them back land in Gaza. They should never have done that. They should have kicked them all out. They thought they were gonna get land for peace. If they'd read the Bible, they would know you will not have land for peace. I gave you the land, you take it, you dispossess these people and kick them out. Did they do it? No. So they're paying the price. Now to the subject matter at hand, what is a rapture? And to many, you will hear the response, the word rapture does not appear in the Bible, and therefore is not a legitimate biblical teaching. So don't be talking about this. Don't be talking about no rapture. Well, the answer is, people knew. There was a guy named Jerome who was commissioned by Pope Damascus back in 382 to revise the Vetus Latina, the old Latin Gospels, and put them into modern Latin. And that's what Vulgate means. It means common Latin. And so Jerome accepted the task, and he reinterpreted not only the Gospels, but the whole Bible. And so while he was translating the word in the Greek, harpazo, found in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4:17, he translated the corresponding word, Latin word, raptumure, which is a root of the Latin word rapio. And that passage is, then we who are alive and shall remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and so ever shall we be with the Lord. That word caught up, it's harpazo in Greek, it's raptumure in Latin, and the word raptumure has been adulterated or anglicized to rapture. And we know that word has been accepted as the meaning of the catching away of the church. Our words rapture and rapid come from that Latin root. Now, the interesting thing is the Greek root, or the Greek word, which is harpazo, means to rescue from the danger of destruction. Destruction's coming, but the church gets a pass. And so, and we know pretty much what that destruction coming looks like. Well, the next argument that you hear about the rapture is that, well, it doesn't make any difference because it's unknown, you can't know it, and anybody who studies it is just wasting their time and they're causing chaos in the church because my opinion is just as good as your opinion. And of course, most people don't even have an opinion because you can't have an opinion because of that day and that hour knoweth no man, right? Not even the angels, but my Father only. The only problem is, well, what is that day? The assumption is, well, it must be the rapture. Because you read the previous verses in that Matthew 24:36 passage, and you see this. Then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in the heaven. Then all the tribes of the earth will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he will send his angels with great sound of the trumpet, which actually is the great trumpet sound. And they will gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. But of that day and that hour knows no man, not even the angels of heaven, but my Father only. The assumption is that, well, you've got a trumpet sounding, Jesus is descending, and angels are gathering. That is the rapture. Well, the only problem is, no, that is not the rapture. What that is the gathering of his elect. There is more than one rapture that's noted in the scriptures. And the key to this whole equation is to understand that there are more than one trump in Judaism that has names. There are three. There's the first trump, there's the last trump, and there's the great trump. They all blow on different occasions. And we know that the last trump is when the church is raptured, not the great trump. Behold, I show you a mystery, we shall not all sleep, but we'll all be changed in the moment of the twinkling of an eye at the last trumpet sound. For the trumpet will sound, the dead will be raised incorruptible, and we shall all be changed. And we know from our study, because we studied the Jewish holy days, that the last trump of Judaism blows during the Musaf, or additional prayer service on Rosh Hashanah. And the Jews believe that upon the blowing of that last trump, the gates of heaven are open and the Tzaddikim, the righteous, go marching in. Isn't that interesting? They can't quite explain all of that, but, you know, their job is to remember it and to keep it. They don't necessarily explain any of it. Otherwise, they would know that the Passover was a memory, a rehearsal of Christ and his sacrifice. Yeah.
But I also think that's the same with Christians too. They don't really know their religion. They really don't know the Bible.
No, but they keep their traditions religiously.
Yeah, they don't study them.
They study them, but the focus is so narrow that they can't see their hand in front of their face. Because if they did, I'll tell you, there is no faster growing group today in Christianity than Messianic Jews. Because boy, once the light bulb goes off, everything makes sense now all of a sudden. So when that trumpet blows, the last trump blows on Rosh Hashanah, the great trump blows on the Nidlah ceremony on Yom Kippur, or the closing of the gates. The gates of heaven are open from Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur, then they're closed. And then we have the millennial reign.
And that's 7 days or 10 days? 7 days?
It's 10 days. Rosh Hashanah is on Tishri 1. Yom Kippur is on Tishri 10. Rosh Hashanah is a 2-day event. Yom Kippur, 1-day event, 7 days in between. The 7 days in between are called the Yamin Noraim.
7 years.
It is a symbol and a sign of the 7 years of tribulation. Because Yamin Noraim, what?
It's not 7 literal days, it's 7 years.
It's literally it's a symbol of the 7-year period.
But it is literally 7 days.
But it is literally 7 days in between the two events. And like I say, it's called the Yamin Noraim, which means many days of many awes. You can't read the book of Revelation without coming away with seeing there are awesome things going on here that have never happened before. So, the great trump, it's defined over in Isaiah. So it shall be that in that day the great trumpet will be blown that we just read about in Matthew 24:36. And they will come who were about to perish in the land of Assyria. These aren't Christians. Who are they? And they who are outcast in the land of Egypt and shall worship the Lord in his holy mountain in Jerusalem. These that came, these are the elect. These are the house of Israel. They have been dispersed. They were about to be destroyed. You know, our assumption was that they were about to be destroyed by either the Egyptians or the Assyrians or wherever they were. They were about to destroy them, but I don't think so. I think they were about to be destroyed by the effects of a binary sun solar system coming into our system and hitting planet Earth with rocks and trash and junk and meteorites and just scouring the whole surface of planet Earth. I think that is, and Christ said himself in Matthew 24, unless those days were shortened, there wouldn't be any life that would survive. Well, we never quite understood the mechanism, but we kind of understand it now. We know what's about to happen. So, moving right along. The rapture, another tidbit of information. In 33 AD, when the Olivet Discourse, that's what we just read in Matthew 24, when that was given, nobody knew anything about a rapture. It was hidden.
Well, at that point, they didn't know a church.
Well, they didn't know about the church. They didn't know a lot of things. And a lot of people have argued, well, the apostles didn't know anything about this, so it can't be true, right? Well, I'm sorry, but God has a way of revealing things at the proper time. They didn't have any need to know. But Paul knew, but he didn't speak about it, or at least write about it, until 20 years later, around 51, 52, 53 AD, to the church at Thessalonica and the church at Corinth. And he is giving brand new information. So the apostles, and even Christ back at the time of his death around 33 AD, he probably knew, but he was not letting the cat out of the bag yet.
Well, when he wrote Thessalonians, for the Thessalonians, that's because they were asking him more about all of our people, all of our loved ones have died first.
Yeah.
So why would he say anything until they asked him?
Yeah, that's another good reason, but the facts remain, nobody knew anything about this rapture until at least 51, 52 AD, not 30. Okay, next argument is the rapture occurs in the middle of the tribulation. And this theory is advocated by those who believe that the seventh trumpet of the trumpet judgments in Revelation is the last trumpet. I've heard that from so many alleged prophecy teachers that it's crazy. But this theory, when you read another passage which is largely misinterpreted, and that is 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. Now, brethren, concerning the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ and our gathering together to him, that's the rapture, we ask you not to be soon shaken in mind or troubled, either by spirit or by word or by letter, as if from us, as though the day of Christ has come. Because some have been writing a letter saying, well, the Lord's day is coming, we're still here. He said, let no man deceive you by any means, that day will not come unless the falling away comes first, and the man of sin is revealed, the son of perdition, who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God or that is worshipped, so that he sits as God in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. Well, the big dilemma here is this issue of the falling away comes first. That is a misinterpretation of the Greek, according to Kenneth W. Wiest. Wiest word studies. The word falling away in the Greek is the Greek word apostasia. And according to Kenneth W. Wiest in his book, it reads as follows. The Greek word translated falling away has one of its meanings a departure. The definite article appears before it in the original text. This word is used in other places in the New Testament, and in these places, the context indicates that from which the departure is made. In this case, the departure is the church departing, gathering together to him, and being rescued from the danger of destruction. The rescue of the danger of destruction comes first, and then the man of sin is revealed. He can't be revealed as long as we, me and thee, are still here. And we are rescued from the danger of destruction. Well, the other argument is, well, the rapture is a recent vintage of John Nelson Darby. Looks like an extinguished person, doesn't he? Extinguished or
Extinguished?
Extinguished.
I'm sure he's
Extinguished for sure. John Nelson Darby was an Anglo-Irish Bible teacher, one of the most influential figures among the original Plymouth Brethren. If you don't know who they are, they're a pretty influential group. And he was also the founder of the Exclusive Brethren, because he and the Plymouth Brethren got all sideways with each other. So, that's what happens, when you have trouble with one, you just start another one. Yeah. He is considered the father of modern dispensationalism and futurism, and the pre-tribulation rapture theology was popularized extensively in the 1830s by John Nelson Darby and the Plymouth Brethren, and further popularized in the United States in the early 20th century by a wide circulation of the Scofield Reference Bible. I remember asking my minister long years ago, when I didn't know anything, I thought ministers knew everything. I asked him, I said, what about this rapture here in the Bible? Is that theologically right? And he said, oh, that's just something the Scofield Reference Bible people have. Don't pay it no mind. And so I threw up my hands and said, well, I guess it doesn't mean anything. But I wasn't real satisfied with it. So the answer to this argument against John Nelson Darby is, does God reveal everything to everyone all at once? Did the apostles have a clue? They didn't. A lot of the things that we know now, the apostles did not know. The Jews didn't know and don't know. God doesn't reveal everything all at the same time. He reveals things at the appropriate time. Did the apostles know when the end of the age would occur? No. Did Daniel understand his own prophecy? He wanted to know. And what did the angel tell him? Man, go on about your business. It's not for you. Does God reveal his hidden secrets at the appropriate time? The answer is, of course he does. Does the church to this day understand the value of the holy days? Well, you can go out here and ask the typical guy walking in off the street, going to church, and ask him, what's the value of Rosh Hashanah? They'll look at you like you've got a speech impediment, because they don't even know what Rosh Hashanah means. So the answer to that, just because it's a recent understanding, doesn't mean it's wrong. I mean, how long do you have to know something before it's true? Rapture's not in the Old Testament. Pay it no mind. But then you read Isaiah 57. The righteous man perishes, and no man takes it to heart. Merciful men are taken away, while no one considers that the righteous is taken away from evil. He shall enter into peace. He shall rest in their bed, each one walking in his uprightness. The word perish in Hebrew is abad, which means to vanish. The righteous man vanishes. Where did he go? Well, he was taken away from evil. He was rescued from the danger of destruction. Psalms chapter 12. To the chief musician on an 8-string harp. Ooh, I came from a group that said you couldn't have musical instruments in church.
I wonder who that could have been.
Can you imagine? Well, never mind. A Psalm of David. Help, O Lord, for the godly man ceases, for the faithful disappear from among the sons of men. They speak idly, everyone to his neighbor, with flattering lips and double heart they speak. May the Lord cut off their flattering lips and their tongue that speaks proud things, who have said, with our tongue we shall prevail, with our lips are our own, who is Lord over us. That sounds like the modern day media. Here you got a case where David is saying, what? Something happened here to the faithful man. He disappeared. I mean, wonder what happened to him. But you can see what's left after the faithful man disappears. You get people that you see on the mainstream media every. And then you can't pass over Micah chapter 7. Woe is me, for I am like the man who gathers summer fruits, like those who glean finished grapes. There is no cluster to eat of the first ripe fruit, which my soul desires. For the faithful man has perished from the earth, and there is no one upright among men. They lie and wait for blood. Every man hunts his brother with a net. Perished. Hebrew word abad, to vanish. The guy vanished. And what is left? The world is full of crazy people. Can you imagine what can happen to this planet Earth if the righteous man ceases to be? I mean, the only thing I'm convinced that's restraining evil in this world is the church. And it's under severe attack everywhere it is. Once you take the church out of the way, man, they're going to get their wish. They're going to get their wish, what they want, and they will find out to their own demise what waits for them. And it's not going to be a pretty. And then, of course, can't pass up Zephaniah. Gather yourselves together. Yes, gather together, O undesirable nation. I wonder which undesirable nation? Deplorables. Gather together, O deplorable nation. Before the decree is issued, before the day is passed like chaff, before the Lord's fierce anger comes upon you, before the day of the Lord's anger comes upon you, seek the Lord, all you meek of the earth, who have upheld his justice. Seek righteousness, seek humility. It may be that you will be hidden in the day of the Lord's anger. One of the names of Rosh Hashanah, Yom HaKisei, the day of hiding. The rapture in the Old Testament, it's all over it. Just got to know what to look for. Timing of the rapture is given in Revelation that we just recently learned. I didn't know this 3-4 years ago. We know it now, though. Now there's a great sign appeared into heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and over her head a garland of 12 stars. Then, being with child, she cried out in labor, in pain to give birth. When did that sign occur? It occurred twice that I know of. Once in 2 BC at the birth of Christ. And the second time, September 23rd, 2017. The sign was Virgo. Virgo had 12 stars over her head. She had the moon under her feet, and she was clothed with the sun. That constitutes one day, September the 23rd, 2017. And we all thought, I sure thought, that was the date that the rest of this passage was going to come to pass, which said, and another sign appeared in heaven, behold, a great fiery red dragon, having 7 heads, 10 horns, 7 diadems, and his tail drew 1/3 of the stars of heaven and threw them to earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was ready to give birth to devour her child as soon as it was born. And she bore a male child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron. And her child was caught up to God, to his throne. Caught up, Greek, harpazo, to rescue from the danger of destruction. This male child was defined as the one who rules the nations with the iron. And we find in Revelation 2 that he who overcomes and keeps my works until the end, to him will I give power over the nations, and he will rule them with a rod of iron. This was a hidden way of talking about the church. The church is going to rule with a rod of iron. It's going to be caught up before that red dragon can have his way with the church, rescued from of destruction. And then we read over in Isaiah, but with the righteousness he shall judge the poor and decide with equity the meek of the earth, and he shall strike the earth with the rod of his mouth, and the breath of his lips he will slay the wicked. The righteousness shall be the belt of his loins, and faithfulness the belt of his waist. The wolf also shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard lie down with the young goat, and the calf and the young lion and the fatling together, and a little child will lead them. Who might that little child be? The one we just saw birthing in Revelation chapter 12. We will be the mechanism through which the Lord rules and reigns for 1,000 years. A little child we will be. Going too fast?
And you lost that.
That's the end.
How'd you go so fast?
There was a lot to cover, and I wanted to make sure you all saw it. The point is, there is a rapture. It is coming. It's a legitimate biblical teaching. It's in the Old Testament. It's in the New Testament. And it is, in certain sense, a recent vintage, because we are the people who have a need to know. And some of the things like Revelation 12, nobody had a need to know until just recently. And you can look back 150 years, you will not find anyone who picked up on Revelation 12. It was hidden, just like Daniel's prophecy was hidden. And consequently, until the time was right, nobody was going to know. Well, now you know. And we know who the red dragon is. It's coming. It's on its way. And the two things that I'm looking forward to in the near future is the construction of the third temple and being able to see that dragon in the sky. Then we'll know pretty sure.
What is the latest on Planet X?
We keep seeing, pictures, varying parts of the earth that show a second sun at varying times of the day. It's always somewhere around our sun, but it's never clear to me that we've got the right one yet. I can't distinguish between whether it's a true planet or if it is an artifact of the camera itself. Hard for me to tell.
The other day, you had it on the Science Channel, whatever you were watching, and I was busy, I wasn't paying attention, but you left it on to go run an errand, and all of a sudden I heard them talking about these two planets that are going to collide, our stars, and it was going to explode into this one massive red-looking thing that was going to be very powerful, and I didn't have time to stop and listen, but I went and punched record real quick so we can go back and look at it later.
Believe me, they're not going to talk about this. They have, by the way, they have talked about Nibiru on some of these science channels, but it's always from the viewpoint of, well, there are crazy people that believe anything out there. And there's this one lady that believes she's in contact with aliens. The aliens are telling her about the coming of Nibiru. And so anybody with half a brain who watches some of that is going to say, these people are nuts, and pass it all off. But, you know, when was it that this came to my mind? This was what, I think it was lesson number 97, when it first dawned on me what was going on. And the reason that I believe that this thing is actually coming is not so much because we're seeing something in the sky, but what is happening in our country that's not spoken about, like FEMA and their organizations, how they placed all of these FEMA camps all over the country and not told anybody about them. How FEMA has bought $1 billion worth of coffins and not told anybody about it. How the country has lost $1 trillion, we don't know where it went. And yet you will find the country is honeycombed with underground caverns. Well, they're not really caverns, they're tunnels. They're drilled for miles in all directions. They've got whole cities underground. And why it is that the CIA is moving its facilities from Washington to Denver, and actually under the Denver airport. I mean, why does the IRS need 500 million rounds of 9mm ammunition? There must be a lot of people not paying their taxes out there. Well, that makes no sense, does it? None of it makes any sense until you put it all in perspective. Somebody, the powers that be, know what's coming, and they are prepared to save themselves, not you. They're going to save themselves. And these movies that you see, the Armageddon movies, meteorite coming, we're all going to die. And we're magically saved. But then it gets bad. Where do you think these zombie movies originated? Where, you know, you see the zombies, they're all mangled walking around, and you got to shoot those zombies, you know, because they're going to get you. What do you think is going to happen when the planet gets scoured with these very small meteorites that are going to come down? They're going to hit people, and there are going to be so many wounded people, you can't take care of them. So what do you do with them? 9mm ammunition up close. That's how you take care of them. We can't put them all in the hospital, so we just put them out of their misery. And so you are all psychologically being prepared. And so it is insidious what has gone on in our own country. And I am convinced that Trump is where he is at because God has created a modern day Cyrus. He is going against all those powers that be who thought they had this thing wired. They're going to destroy the United States so that we are not an affected entity any longer, so that you can take over the whole world. As soon as this thing comes and wipes everybody out, then we'll have a one world government. And I think that's where it's all headed. But once again, this is just my opinion. We'll see as time goes on. If we see this thing coming, and we actually do see a legitimate second sun coming, then we'll know we're getting really close. And
And guys, I don't know, but we have a tree ready for him. He's gonna
they
be-
keep threatening to hang me from a tree out there.
We have a tree, that's right.
Well, there's no other Sunday school teacher here operates under the pressure that I do. Yeah,
Rapture, what are the English words like caught up, what other words?
caught up, let's see, well, in the ancient scripture, it was perish. They used the Hebrew word abad, means perish. And, I forget the other, Hebrew word that's interpreted something else, like disappeared. I'll have to pull it off, I can send it to you. But, there are a lot of words that have more than one meaning. And as you've heard me say, when you are translating Hebrew, you are interpreting Hebrew, because one Hebrew word, as we have seen, has much more than one meaning, like the Hebrew word eretz. Eretz means earth. It can also mean land. It can also mean country. So when Noah's flood occurred, it said that it destroyed and covered the whole eretz.
Now, don't get still started.
I know.
I'm just saying that when you have a word, when you have a word like abad, how are you gonna interpret it? Well, disappeared maybe, or perished maybe, but actually, abad means to vanish. So in this context, vanish is, I believe, the appropriate word to use. And that's exactly what's going to happen to the church sometime soon. Gonna vanish.
He's doing that.
Well, that's the way I look at it. I'll end this right here.